Yo, what up? Welcome to a championship edition of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I'm joined once again by my friend Calvin in Seattle. What's up, Calvin?
Hey, what's up, Patrick? Unbelievable. We just got done watching an amazing cap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so exhausted, like emotionally, mentally tapped, drained, and everything. I feel like so good, and I'm so happy for us as fans, for the team, for the Bay, the whole Warriors fan base. I mean, like, this is one of those episodes that can go on for 6 hours, but I'm gonna keep it to like 30 minutes. But man, like, I don't know, how you feeling? How you feeling? Because like I don't even know what to say because it's one of those things where like I've been doing this for so long that I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of speechless. So why don't you fill in the gaps for me right now?
I mean, it's an unbelievable feeling. When I reflect back, right, like it's 4 championships. 4, you know? I mean, we were the team that wouldn't make the playoffs. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like that was the majority of our reality was, okay, what's the offseason move? Can we have a winning record? You know, can we
Mm-hmm.
not lose every game in the fourth quarter, right? And like it's unbelievable. I mean, at the beginning of the year, a friend of mine was like, I think the Warriors are my dark horse to win the whole thing, and I didn't say anything, like because as a
Mm-hmm.
fan, you don't when somebody says that at the beginning of the season, you just keep your mouth shut, right? You don't say anything, right?
Yeah.
Even when we were winning, like the way that we started off the season, like I just didn't say anything because I didn't want to jinx it, and uh, you know, I think even going into this game today, I wasn't. I thought that we had a really good chance to finish it off. The Celtics looked like they were on the ropes. Starting from the second quarter on, they really, I mean, they looked like they just didn't have it in them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, it's an unbelievable moment. And I'm having a little bit of scotch to celebrate on a Thursday night. Put on my old, like 2015 championship hat.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's an amazing feeling. I watched the game with my kids and try to really
That's good.
like like really push to them that that this is a big moment. You may go. Hopefully, this won't be true, but you may go. Much of your adult life not experiencing this again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think back and, like I've said to you, I restarted this podcast in November of 2020, the day Klay tore his Achilles. And, and I was like, for me, it's crazy because it's this moment where, you're watching this team so closely, like closer than you ever have before for basically 2 seasons, and then seeing it grow. At the beginning of the season, I picked the Warriors to win the title. I thought that they had a really, really good chance. And, not because I'm a homer, but because like I'm looking at this team and I was like, okay, if they're healthy, like there's going to be a lot of parity. There are no dynasty teams that are going to dominate. The Suns had the best record, but they obviously weren't perfect. And I was like, just give us a chance. And then looking at this season, also like going into the draft and hoping for somebody good to fall at 7 and wanting Kuminga and getting Kuminga. And then, picking up Bielitsa, Andre Iguodala, Otto Porter Jr. in the offseason, being like, okay, these are some veteran pieces that fit who are very flawed. But if they stay healthy, right? It was about staying healthy, getting the best
Right.
seating possible without messing up your health, and then getting the newer guys who are not used to this big stage, whether they be younger dudes or people who just haven't been there, like a Jordan Poole, an Andrew Wiggins, an Otto Porter Jr., a Bielitsa, like those guys to be ready for the moment. And like, I'm not going to say here and say like I knew this was going to happen, but like as you're watching this team so closely, it's like you're seeing the pieces come together. You're like, if this happens, then this could happen, and then that could happen, and then ultimately seeing it, it's like, I have nothing to do with the real team. You know what I mean? But it's like
Yeah.
extremely, extremely satisfying because you're like, yeah, not because like, oh, I'm right, but like just to see the things that you hope for actually pan out and be true. And even like the stories that get written, it's like, let's not forget how hard these moments were, right? Like the first title, how hard some of those series were, how
Oh man.
like the Cavs were ahead in that first finals,
Yeah.
and then
We
they
were
made the
playing
switch
it
to start.
wrong, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
and then we made the switch to play Andre Iguodala back in the starting lineup, right?
exactly.
And then that changed
Yeah.
everything. So this one, it's like you were saying. Uh, I was saying to you before, it's like this game, which is on a Thursday, and the game 7 would have been on Sunday. I was like, this game is the difference between a really, really bad weekend and a really, really great weekend, right? And the Warriors have gifted us a great weekend of not having to worry about a game 7
Yeah.
and also, being the NBA champions. I mean, were you worried? I mean, let's quickly talk about the game, just some stuff about, were you worried about it?
I wasn't worried. I mean, look, the Celtics came out. They looked really good, right? They came out with great energy. They were really together. I think we went down something like 14-2. I think at like 12-2 run. I was like, oh, okay, they called the timeout, right? And that was I think I was texting with the group. We're all
Mhm.
on this big group chat, right? And I mean, we were all just like, yeah, this is their first punch. This is kind of what we expected.
Yep.
But this team being down 12 points, being down 10 points, that's not and especially in the first quarter, that's meaningless, right? It's all about how we respond, right? And slowly, sure enough, by the end of the second quarter, we had closed the gap down. I think it was like 2 minutes left in the second quarter. We had closed the gap down to like 4 points, maybe. I think on Gary Payton on some Gary Payton. I think he had a layup, a putback, and then two free throws, right?
Mm-hmm,
And so I was like, man, this, from there on, I think we then went on some crazy run. I think we ended up closing. The stat was like something like 52, something 50 something points to 25 points. Outscored
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
outscored the Celtics from that initial whatever 2-12 run that they had, right? So I think I was texting with you, right? Like we've never gone into halftime with this much of a lead. Never. It hadn't
Right.
happened, right? Like every game was like we were either down a couple points, we were maybe up a point, right? Like we were never up like this.
We did have a 12-point lead. We had a 12-point lead going into, I think, second half or halftime of game
Oh, is that
4.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. But
okay.
still.
But no, I wasn't. I really wasn't worried. Even when they I think they got it down to like single digits.
Yeah.
I honestly wasn't worried because it just seemed like the team was playing with such control and with such like it was very clear they had been here before, right? And the
Yeah.
Celtics, on the other hand, like they just looked like they didn't want any of this. Like they were shrinking away from the moment. I mean, with the exception, I think, of Jaylen Brown, who I think attacked all
Mhm.
night and was good, had big shots, and Williams, Time Lord was good, right? But aside from that, Marcus flopped a bunch, was complaining. Man, Tatum was terrible, dude. Like,
Yeah.
um, he was. I think. I mean, you called it, right. Like you were like, I don't know. This guy has to show me that he's the guy, and he's not the
Yeah.
guy, right? And I mean, you called it, man.
Yeah.
Like he was awful, dude. I think did he only score 2 points in the second half?
Maybe he only had 13 on the night, and when he got blocked by Wiggins in the fourth, I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's not gonna look good on his
right.
resume."
We look good up and down the roster. We look good, So I was not worried at all.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things that I wanted from this team after they lost game 3 was like, we saw that every time they play with, honestly, like with real effort, focus, force, whatever you want to call it, that they usually win. I'm not saying that,
Yeah,
that's all it takes, but, in that first game, fourth quarter, when they weren't closing out, or in game 3, when, the Celtics started off with wide open threes and kept draining them. The fact that the Warriors are playing with that kind of purpose, that gave me confidence. And then also it's like, hey, okay, if championship DNA, if like Steph is really a closer, if all these things that we believe are true, then he's going to take this game home. You know what I mean? He's not going to let them lose this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just by being like
Yeah.
who I am as a Warriors fan, like, yeah, I had concerns, I had worries when the lead went from 22. I was like, at the end of every quarter, I was like, okay, come on, get it up to like, 20. You know what I mean? Like get it up to at least 15. Don't let it
Yeah.
get down to 10. And like you're thinking all the psychological games. It's like, like, okay, well, 15, that makes the Celtics think they have a chance. But it also makes the Warriors actually believe that they still have to play harder because it's not over yet. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just all
Right.
like
Right.
these things that uh, that are part of the exhausting part of being a fan. Tatum is a good player, great talent, and people know he's 24 and he'll get better. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I still don't see from him though is that ability just to be that killer, right? Like the Kobe
Yeah.
24 wristband thing, and then like I see Jaylen Brown as more of a killer than Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum is just very skilled and timely. Again, I don't see
Yeah.
Tatum with that yet, so maybe
Right.
it'll evolve in
Yeah.
time. But honestly, that ain't my problem anymore.
Yeah, we're done with that. We're done with that at least for a year, a little bit less than a year, hopefully. Man, actually, biggest storyline for me and biggest point of satisfaction for me on this is, I think Steph, uh, I think this was a huge game and a huge series for him where he just sort of shut
Yeah.
the haters out. I mean, come on, man, you cannot. He had one bad game, right? And then
Mhm.
even in that game, he wasn't even that bad. Like, yeah, he didn't shoot well, but
He just had a
he
bad
dished a
shooting
bunch.
game, technically.
He had a
Yeah.
bad shooting game, right? And he
Mhm.
still dished a bunch, and still all the other action that happened was on account of him being on the floor, And so, like for him to come out the way that he did today, you know, with the night celebration, with the put a
Yeah,
ring
yeah.
on it celebration, right? Like, I mean, he just shut the haters off, up. I think at least I would like to think that they are looking at this and like, there's no way, right? Like this man is, not just the one of the greatest shooters ever, not just the greatest shooters ever, but like one of the greatest competitors of the sport ever,
Mhm.
and so I think it's like for the records, people might say, oh yeah, he has the finals MVP, right? And that's
Mhm.
what they're like tipping their hat to. But if you watch this series, there should be no doubt in your mind that this man is rising to the occasion, and
Mhm.
he's closing, he's stepping up when it matters most, right? He's not afraid to take the biggest shot, and he makes those shots. It's like, I mean, to
Yep.
come out today, what did he have? Like, I think I'm just going off the top here. I'm sure he had like six threes, right? Like and he shot
6 for
probably
11.
better than 50, right? Yeah,
6 for
right.
11.
Look at that. I mean, look, he shot 54, 55 from three, 57. Overall, like, I mean, 34 points. Like, that's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I love the fact like some of those moments, like there were a lot of Curry moments in the sense that, especially in this game, like the nighty night thing. I was during the game, I was like, when they had the 20-point lead, I was like, is he gonna bust this out? And when's he gonna bust it out? And when he busted it out at like 3 minutes left, I was like,
Yeah,
oh man, that's early. I was a little
that's early.
concerned because I was like, come back but obviously they went on to win the ring thing. And then, him getting emotional and like just
Yeah,
cathartic for him because the lasting memory of him in game 6 of the 2019 finals is him sitting on the ground after Klay got hurt.
right,
And then also like right before that, like slamming the ball down,
right.
knowing that Klay was hurt
It
and
was
it was
over.
over. And so,
Yeah,
like him carrying this team and being who he is. And again, fully admitting that he listens to all the chatter, right? So that all kind of comes out. And, it's one of those things because we've rolled with this team, not just us, obviously the whole fan base, that it's like you're so tied to them because like
yeah,
it's rare as Draymond said in one of his pressers, like for this kind of core to stay together for so long, and not just a core of like regular guys. These are a core of Hall of Famers, right?
right,
And
right.
we've been rocking with them for like a decade plus, and
Yeah,
I just think like you feel that too because as you know, like on that group text in 2019, it was just like the saddest thing I'd ever seen in my life when Klay, I mean, because Durant had tore his Achilles
Right.
the day before, and then Klay tore his ACL, and it
Next
was
game,
just
yeah.
like the saddest day. So like it was very, I feel like we all felt this, and I mean this elation, this high, and the satisfaction of it all, because again, like for me, it's like knowing that seeing Steph play the way he played last season, and hoping that Klay, even though he was not game six Klay, he
He
was
was not, yeah.
5 for 20, um, had some boneheaded plays, but it's all good. But
Yeah.
that he still had something that Draymond still had. So Draymond had a very solid game,
Draymond
and
had the best game of his series, I think, like,
yeah. I mean, his stat
I
line was
mean,
solid, 5 for 10. That he had two threes, man. In that first one,
yeah.
it was like, oh, okay,
Yep,
we're
yep,
doing
yep.
this now. So 12 boards, 8 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 12
Yeah,
points. I mean, that's a
yeah.
redemption game of sorts for Draymond.
Defense. I think defense overall for this team is the thing that people don't talk about enough. I mean, people do talk about it, but they kind of don't really talk about the right people. So like, let's start with like the obvious person, right? So Draymond obviously known for playing defense, right? Like this defensive game for him was just, I mean, he was everywhere, man. Like
Yeah, yeah.
defensively, right? Like it's hard to like he doesn't even really reflect in the stat sheet the way that he played today, which is why I think like it
Hmm.
was by far his best game of the series. And then
Hmm.
and then I mean Steph's defense. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to put into words, man. The man had steal after steal and takeaway and swipe downs. Like
Hmm.
yes, he got away with a couple. Like he did get away with a foul on one of the replays. I was like, yeah, that was
Sure.
definitely a foul, right? But
Yeah.
he played incredible defense today on guys that are bigger than him. He's usually the smallest guy on the floor if GP2's not
Hmm.
on the floor, right? Like,
Hmm.
and they're usually matching him up with somebody like Tatum, right, or
Hmm.
somebody like Horford, right? And like he played them well. They're either passing the ball away or they're missing, and or he's stealing it, right? Which is in this game in particular, Steph's defense was just incredible. I think that there was on the broadcast they flashed a stat line highlighting his defense, and his when he was a primary defender, people shot 27% against him. I think
Yeah.
one 3-pointer. I don't know what the denominator on that was, but I think 10 points scored overall on Steph when he was a primary defender, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
incredible. That is incredible, right? The other person is I know I've been kind of going off on Klay a little bit and saying like, he's not, his shooting hasn't really been there in terms of the efficiency that he had before he got injured. But his defense the last couple of games, the last couple of quarters, I think has kind of crawled back in a big way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like fourth quarter of the last game, I was like, whoa, man, his defense was just, on point, staying in front of his man, forcing out like turnovers, right? Like, and I think in this game too, his defense was, really that's what he contributed than the offensive side, right? And then you add in GP2 to that, right? And it just really highlights that. I felt like all the action, all the runs in this game, I mean, like they usually are, were triggered by the defensive force.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
That's what triggered the turnovers. That's what triggered like getting out on the break, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. I can't say enough about defense, but I'll stop there.
The Celtics, they had 22 turnovers and the Warriors had 15, right? The Warriors, like they could have blown this open even more so if they hadn't
Yes,
kind of had some gaffes here and there and some weird turnovers. But the fact that like, the Celtics fans will probably say that we turned the ball over too much. And I mean, that's obvious, but it was like largely a lot of it was forced because of this Warriors defense that was very, very intense. Like they were
absolutely.
the Warriors like were gang rebounding. They were like stripping balls like underneath the basket in the paint. And especially in the second half when they were just like, trying to just close out the game. And yeah, I agree with you, man. Steph, obviously everybody knows now, hopefully, that his defense, he ain't no slouch. I mean, he's obviously stronger and he's savvier. He just is, right? And he still
Yeah.
has quick hands. I think that he's not anybody that can just knock over. And I agree 100% about Klay, right? Like sometimes it's too easy to focus on the offense, but at the beginning of the series, we're all talking about how he can't stay with Jaylen Brown, he can't stay with Jayson Tatum. Somehow, some way, he got better. He figured some stuff out, right? And that helped immensely tonight, you know? And then Andrew
immensely.
Wiggins, man, I'm just looking at the stat sheet. Dude played 44 minutes. Dude was 4 for 9 from three. I did not know he hit I didn't know he took 9 threes, but some of those were huge. That one in the fourth quarter from the corner,
Oh
from the right
man,
corner, I was like,
yeah,
we're winning this game right there. And then he had 7 boards, 7 assists, 2 steals. And I'm happy for like everybody, but like I'm really happy for Andrew Wiggins because I've said this before. Don't know the dude, but just seems like a good dude, and he's finally finding his place. You know, he had this crazy year where he was an all-star starter, where now he's an NBA champion. And for as maligned and as criticized as he's been, it doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? He was the second best, consistently best player in this series.
one
And I
hundred
think
percent.
without him, it's like it's gonna be rough. It's going 7 and we might lose, you know? You know, Wiggins and what he's able to bring, and just like on both ends of the court, and the willingness to put all that energy, and the fact that he's only 26 and that he has so much energy. I mean, so you have the vets who are like 32, 33, 34, and then you have the young dudes like Poole, and then, you know, the guys like Kaminga who didn't play, and Moody. And then you have like Wiggins and Looney right in the middle of that.
Right.
And that's huge because they have experience and they both have pluses that help you win this game. Looney is a champion already. He's been through these things. Wiggins has that overall physical talent and just the ability to do things. And again, like I'm super happy for that dude, because just to hear him talk about winning is I don't know, it's there's something very, as corny as it can be, you know, in moments like this, like there is just something very, very pure about like that joy and that just kind of momentary like elation, you know?
Yeah, I mean Wiggins. That whole story is just so poetic. I agree with you. It's like I've been cheering for him all year. It's like last year when he came over, it was Mr. Dependable and got the two-way Wigs moniker. That was the start of
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, Steph had an incredible postseason and an incredible series. But Wiggins has been consistent all year. And like if I just think about every single game, this guy has showed up to every single game, giving us, either his like regular stat line of like, teen scoring, high digit, single digit rebounding, or occasionally, getting into the 20s and double digit rebounding, right, as he did the last 2 games, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
thing that I just love about him so much is that he does dirty work, right? Like he's always in there. Like a lot of his
Yeah.
scoring comes in on putbacks, so he's going in, crashing offensive boards, right? He's doing the small things that aren't like he's not like a flashy player, even though he's so athletic that he can have these incredible, posterizing dunks. His main game isn't really that flashy. It's like, hey, I'm gonna do this dirty work on defense. I'm gonna be
Right.
down on the block, right? Like maybe I'll do a little penetration and then like mid range, something along those lines, right? Like not super flashy, but he's always the kind of guy that if the opposing team is going on a run, like he's very likely going to be one of the player that is going to stop that run with a
Yep.
very quiet but run stopping too. Like mid range, right? Like he's that guy, right? And I think just like his overall story is just so poetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, this stage of like playing in the finals and this run, was a big coming out party for Wiggins, and so you can't not be happy for the guy, right? I agree. I agree with you. Like he seems like a really great guy. Obviously, we've never met him, right? But you can't help but cheer for the guy, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because I just remembered how all of last season and beginning of this season, I was like, man, where is this Maple Jordan that I've heard so much about? Like he's only 25, 26 at the time. And like, you know, like there was this, it seemed like he wasn't using his athleticism. And I always figured like, oh, well, you know, he doesn't get injured. Maybe he like really just paces himself. I mean, paces himself for a guy who never went deep in the playoffs, but like he paces
Yeah,
himself and like that's when he would miss like a lot of layups, putbacks, stuff like that. But then you just started seeing the aggression, and I feel like that's a word that I've used for him for the last couple seasons, because it's like, oh, Andrew Wiggins has aggression, he's showing aggression, he's consistent aggression, because that's what we just wanted to see. And when the chips were on the table or whatever, it's like it was amazing to see him actually do that, because even in this game, when he started missing a few jumpers and shots that he
Hmm.
was making the last couple games, I was like, oh, this is a game where Andrew Wiggins like turns back into a pumpkin, and like, but I mean, he still had a great game and he hit big shots. When he hit that corner three, I was like, I was almost like confused while it was up in the air. I didn't know what to think. Right when Steph shoots, you're like, this is going in. When Wiggins shoots,
Yep.
sometimes I think it's going in, but that one I was like, is it? And then it went in, and I was like, it's all good. I hope that they do the thing where they take the trophy back to where they grew up. Maybe he takes it back to the suburbs of Toronto or whatever, and gets his due a little bit there, because he very much deserves all the praise that he's getting, and I love seeing it. And he's left these playoffs. He's left us with memories of some of the most amazing dunks in game that I've
Yes.
seen, and some of the
Yeah.
most aggressive emotion. I've talked about this throughout the season. I would just look for a fist pump, you know what I mean? And so seeing like him flexing and mean mugging and yelling at people, yes, this is what I want. And it was very satisfying seeing him guard, whether it was Tatum usually, or Brown on switches or whatever, and knowing like I'm so thankful that we have a guy who is just like them, tall, lanky, rangy, long, athletic as hell, because you know we know what it's like when you don't have that guy. You know what I mean? And it's like you
Yes.
just feel like you're stuck in the mud. Are you ready for the NBA champs to be crowned? Join the finals action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can make any $5 NBA bet and get $150 in free bets instantly. Looking to turn another small bet into a big payday during the NBA finals? With a DraftKings same game parlay, you can do just that. This NBA season, a customer placed a $5 same game parlay and won over $5,000. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, total made threes, total rebounds, and more, and boom, you have a shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPN. Make any $5 bet during the NBA Finals and get $150 in free bets instantly. That's promo code TBPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Let me ask you, I don't want to keep you too long from your own personal celebrating with your fam and everything, but like, man, I've said, and you've probably heard me say this, that you know I've said this whole season, like, I think the Warriors will be better next year. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, like, the narratives change, right? That's how sports works. It's like, if they lost this game, it goes from like, oh yeah, the Warriors, they just have to win one, or the Celtics have to win two in a row. Then all of a sudden, it's like anything can happen in Game 7, and that's what it would have stressed me out. But then with this team, if they lost, then they should have just traded so and so for Bradley Beal, or they should have like done this, done that. They should have gotten rid of the draft picks that were like Kuminga and all this stuff. And I was like, no, let's keep all those things. But now the narrative, and I look forward to the offseason, the next season, because I started this podcast, man, in depth when the Warriors, after they just finished their worst season, right? And so
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, okay, the dynasty's back, like you press play after it was on pause for a while, and now it's like you look forward, and I think people can start seeing the stuff that I and other people who've been on the show have been talking about all season. It's like, man, as long as there's no major drop off from the core Hall of Fame dudes, and if Poole improves, I mean, and we all know what the effect of playing in the playoffs and the finals, being a champion, can have on a team. I mean, what do you expect? Also, I just got to say, like, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody are champions at age 19, barely 20,
19.
and then
Yeah.
James Wiseman, NBA champion. Are you kidding me? Take that trophy to Memphis, man. Just don't hurt your
Yeah.
knee anymore. But what do you expect for next season?
I agree with you, and I agree with Stephen A. Smith. I think this team's going to be a force again next year. I think last time when we talked, I kind of mentioned that the Warriors are kind of in this in between period. And the
Mm-hmm.
question was like, well, is there going to be this in between period where they're going to be really, where like, are these in between guys, going to be able to carry them? And I think the answer to that question right now is yes. I mean, this, and I can't help but also be affected by like the recency bias of having just seen Steph put on a show. If I sort of like zoom and Draymond playing an incredible game, and if I zoom out a little bit, I might say, okay, well, Draymond's I think is declining. He can have one of these games every once in a while, but he is declining. I think Klay's shooting is going to come back, but he's also on the backside of his prime. So
Mm-hmm.
Steph will probably shoot like this for a while long because it just looks. I mean, he just looks. I mean, he looks incredible. So he's probably going to extend for a while, and I think to your point, Poole is going to get more consistent. That was his main thing. He's going to. I think he will be that consistent guy that can get you a bucket whenever you need. Right. We have
Mm-hmm.
talked about Kuminga. Kuminga is going to be a big piece, right? And if they learn how to play defense and they learn how this like ball movement game works, where they're not caught on the same side as Steph all the time, which is like what often happened with him on the floor, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're this is going to be a great team. I think this is really like an extension, of the original dynasty, and I'm feeling high on the idea that it's going to continue. I'm feeling confident that it will continue, which is kind of mind blowing because I'm still that Warriors fan that was there, when we weren't winning very much, when it was
Yeah.
about, hey, you know like who are we pairing with Monte Ellis? Like we need to give this man some help. So yeah. So I think this is huge. And also like I mean here's another thing, right? Like Steve Kerr with 9 championships,
Yep.
5 as a player, 4 as a coach. I mean, wow, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable to have that type of pedigree that associated with this team is it's yeah, it's unbelievable. Anyway, I think you can see I'm basking in the glow of just having watched us win another championship.
On the Kerr thing, it's like when they lost to the Cavs and then when they lost to the Raptors, I was like, oh man, because I want to see Kerr have more than Phil Jackson, right? I think Phil
Yeah.
has 11.
Does he?
So now
Okay.
that we're seeing this team, it's like, oh, okay, actually they could possibly, do that. They could get more than Steve Kerr could get more than Phil Jackson because it was like if they'd won those two other ones, then like he would actually be tied with Phil Jackson, which is
Right.
mind numbing. And also like Steve Kerr, just his charmed basketball existence, barely could make it in the league. Found like a, a niche with the Bulls, and then he hopped onto the Spurs, and then he stuck in, and then he was just like, he's done everything: broadcaster,
Right.
GM, finals champion, coach, and everything. So I mean, it's insane. Yeah, in terms of next season, for sure, it's crazy, right? Because it was like I said earlier, talking about the injuries. I think Klay will be better. I think he'll be better,
Yeah.
just because he needs to get like some time away from everything. I think his body will be better next season,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but the thing about Draymond, it's like I do worry about him because like the pounding, and also, hey, he got three months off. I know he was hurt, but like the rest of his body got some time off. So I think that played a major factor in him
Yeah.
basically being healthy for the playoffs. And then Steph also had a month off to heal that foot that Marcus Smart fell on. Things kind of worked out a certain way, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out next season. And it's funny too because all the pieces, and I may have mentioned this when you were on after game 3, or I may have mentioned this after, I may have mentioned this several times, but looking at who the Warriors have just under contract for next season, it's Steph, Klay, Draymond, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody, and that's 8. Okay, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really don't know. I don't think there's a better 8 that's actually signed to their team right now that goes that deep. I think that team could actually, like, if that were your top
Yeah.
8, that'd be a pretty good team. So I feel good about next season, and everybody's gonna nationally jump on the bandwagon again and start talking about the Warriors as favorites, and I ain't gonna mind that at all. You know what I mean? Especially in
Yeah,
next year's stacked West when everybody comes back healthy for the most part. Anyway, I will end this now because like I am glad that this is officially my last podcast of this season. I get to put a ribbon on this one, and I'm gonna do a just kind of a season recap with my buddy Aram in Toronto coming up like early next week because I just need to think and just kind of decompress. And it's a very cathartic win for everybody. And then I'm going to start talking about the NBA draft, which is next week,
exactly. Yeah.
um, which I have no idea what's happening, and we have the 28th pick, so whatever. But any final thoughts or words on this game, the season, just how it all feels?
So this is for sure the second most important championship of this run. The other one in contention being the 2015, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think 2015 emotionally was a bigger deal because I had it was the first one that I had gotten to witness as a longtime fan. But I do think this one is a big one, because Steph like did it with as the primary leader on the national stage when everyone was watching to see what he would do, and so from a legacy
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, this one's big. I think Jeff Van Gundy on the broadcast said something like, "Hey, this is the least talented team of all the Warriors teams that have won championships," and that's I got to think about that. I got to think back a little bit. I think he might be right? Because that initial 2015 team was pretty stacked with like deep vets, right? That had all been really
Yeah.
good, right? But that's a big deal to come back, right? After
Mm-hmm.
2 seasons of not even making the playoffs, to come back against a stacked, Western Conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And against this team, that has been touted as like arguably the best defensive team, I don't know how long, but like, people have made some like kind of crazy claims about the Celtics team defensively, right? So this is a big one, and I'm really enjoying it. I am enjoying it for. I'm happy for all the storylines that this
Mm-hmm.
caps off, right? Like the Steph storyline, right? Silencing the doubters, the defense, Andrew Wiggins, Klay coming back. It's
Mm-hmm.
Dre like being this hated figure and then stepping up in this game, the last game, right, to close it out and playing a classic like peak Draymond game. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
um there's a lot here to love, right? Also Kevon Looney, right? Like another 3-time NBA champ, Kevon Looney. Like, who's this guy?
Yeah,
Kevon
yeah,
Looney,
yeah,
right? Like rebound monster Kevon Looney, right? Iguodala getting another ring with the team, right?
yeah, yeah.
Finally getting that Finals MVP. It's and the Western Conference MVP that nobody cares about, but is I will point
That
out
just that just got invented this year. Yeah.
it just got invented exactly right. So this is a big one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I'm really elated. I'm happy. I'm happy. Yeah.
For me, like this might be the most special one because of all that happened before this. Like to me, the KD ones were like probably they're the third and fourth most meaningful to
Hmm.
me. Uh, I've always talked about like, man, if we won in 2016, would I have traded the KD ones? And I was like, yeah, for sure, because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like we got robbed of like peak Steph. What would he have done after his first unanimous
Right.
MVP, given the chance? But I think with this squad and the drama of it all, and the fact that so much is riding on this, like on the first one, it was found money, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
They had 67 wins, but it was like, oh my gosh, are they really doing this? Here, it's like all the legacies, right? I mean, Steph is tied with LeBron for finals wins, right? And like to me,
Yeah.
like I don't really pay attention to those comps all the time, but you go on Twitter and people talk about it. You go on online, people like
Right. Right.
talking
Right.
heads
Right.
talking about it. And so like, that's meaningful because to me it's like if they lost this, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, then they're 3-3, and in the finals. And then like, what does this team become next year? Then all of a sudden the clock is ticking in a way next season for oh, well, they better get it this coming year or next year, because if they don't, then what's going to happen? And so all that stuff is just hushed, and,
Right, right.
this team, this fan base just gets to just appreciate this. And like, it really is the narrative, and not just in terms of storylines, but just like the arc of how all this went. What, like a couple of days ago, it was the anniversary, a 3-year anniversary of Klay
Right.
tearing his ACL and all that stuff. And just to see him up there, like I got so used to seeing him in street clothes that, seeing him on the court, it took me a while to get used to, and to see him up there celebrating, it's like, like I said, I felt like they were my pick to win this season. But when you ask me about someone like Klay being up there on the platform, celebrating a title, holding the finals trophy, it would have been hard for me to say like, oh yeah, I can see that happening. Like, just like that visualization of it. So, credit to this team, this organization, and, Steve Kerr and the coaching staff for pulling all the right strings in these playoffs in general. And I got to say, it's satisfying to be a fan of the team that has that championship DNA, that experience, instead of being like the young team or the not as talented team that like kind of puts a run on like the Spurs, but then like in the final few minutes of the fourth quarter, they just give the ball to Tim Duncan and he just outclasses everybody. That's what Steph is, right? Like,
Yeah,
he's that unbeatable force for so many teams. And
yeah,
now the Celtics and their fan base get to experience that. And I really, like, again, really wanted to see them do that on the Celtics floor, not just to like put it in those fans' faces, but like there's something special to me about like seeing them do it. I know it's not the old Boston Garden, but at the Garden, like that to me
yeah,
is kind of awesome. It would be the same for me if they won a title in the United Center, or if they won a Western Conference Finals at the what do you call it now? The crypto.com center or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, man, no, it's I feel great. I'm gonna enjoy watching the fourth quarter. I'm gonna watch it again tomorrow. I'm gonna watch all the post game stuff. I'm just gonna revel in that, because we know how hard it is just as fans to get to this point, and so we're gonna savor this one. Savor this
Yeah.
as a Warriors fan.
It's going to be a great summer, right?
Yeah,
Like all
man. Yeah,
summer.
no, it's
It's
gonna
going to
be
be a
awesome,
great
man.
summer.
Just got to
Yeah.
get James Wiseman correct, and make sure he dominates in summer league, man.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, once again, Galvin in Seattle, thank you for joining me on this special episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed listening to you all season. I feel like I mean, we've watched every game together basically. so, so it's been great to come on late in the season. And yeah, thanks for having me. It's it's been amazing, honestly. This is just going through COVID and everything, right? Like, we're just not watching with other people so much anymore. So having a
Yeah,
chance to connect, even over like Zoom like this is just it's awesome. And I appreciate all the work that you do. You keep me company the day after the game when I still want to hear about the game, when I want to break it down. So I appreciate all the work that you put into
as Steph says, that's what I do. All right.
it.
All right. Once again, the Warriors are your 2022 NBA champions. This has been another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Epino or at Oakland Warriors. Check us out at oaklandwarriors.com, and be sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Oakland Warriors. Also check us out at oaklandwarriors.com, and be sure to tell your fellow Warrior fan friends to tune in and listen to the Oakland Warriors podcast. It's produced by National Film Society and is a part of the Basketball Podcast Network. And if you're so inclined, please do leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify, and leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts. That would be hugely helpful. Thanks for listening. That's it. Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time, and go Dubs.